Доброго дня, я Вячеслав Покотило, і від імені МІМ Київ вітаю вас всіх, хто приєднався сьогодні до проєкту «Економічний фронт». Це один з проєктів бізнес-школи МІМ, який був започаткований ще на початку, чи, скажімо так, минулий рік був розділений, безумовно, 24 лютому, але вже в березні 22-го року ми започаткували цей онлайн-проєкт для того, щоб створити платформу, де люди, які продовжують займатися бізнесом навіть в такий непростий чи важкий час, могли отримати чи консультацію, чи просто можливість поговорити, почути, як чи щось робити правильно, чи навпаки, що можна робити, що сьогодні в Україні не робиться. Ми продовжуємо цей проєкт, можливо, не так регулярно, як це було в минулому році, і я вас вітаю сьогодні. Сьогоднішній наш гість і вся наша подальша розмова буде англійською мовою, і я хотів тоді нагадати тим, хто не може легко сприймати англійську, що з часом, я думаю, розумний період, протягом тижня чи менше, відео буде доступне з субтитрами на платформі МІМ, і закликаю вас їх послухати, бо наш гість представляє Private Equity Fund. І я дуже радий і гордий представити пана Хенріка Джонса, який представляє Private Equity Fund Buckhill Capital з Сполучених Штатів Америки. Чому радий, чому це незвична подія? Тому що Private Equity – організації, компанії, які в Україні, безумовно, і представники бізнес-школи чули, але вони не існують, так? Тобто вони існують десь далеко і мають бути багатими, які мають гроші, і ці гроші використовують для розвитку бізнесу. Тому сьогодні є нагода, зрозуміти, що таке Private Equity компанія, зрозуміти, як ця компанія працює, а це незвична компанія, і це зрозуміти, як українці можуть цим скористатися з різних точок зору. So we can start speak English. I welcome you, Mr. Jones, in Business School. It's a great pleasure to introduce you. I just told in Ukrainian that you represent the company which everybody knows or heard in Ukraine, especially from business community. Private equity is, let's say, something which we have excited to know. As a company that give money, that help developing business, and that's the opportunity for us to learn how such companies operate. Your company in particular operates. You are not a very standard company, I know, but you'll present it. Second, what are conditions or reasons for your investments, and how this can be implemented, and in what form can be implemented in Ukraine in particular. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll have 1 hour for discussion. And first of all, I'd love to hear how would you represent a private equity fund, Buckhill Capital LP.
Thank you. Dobry den. How does that go?
Great.
First of all, it is great to be back here. I came in 2006, and I had a fund, and I was sent here to buy farmland. And I will tell you that, first of all, the situation, the war, very different. It was a much more peaceful time in 2006. But frankly, it was not a great place to do business in terms of being able to buy farmland. And so I actually left, deciding not to invest in farmland. And I come back here today and actually have some companies with employees here, and I'm really very excited about the business opportunities here. So first of all, I've come back here not with just an investment hat on, but it's also to be of service and try to help. And so, I can't really help in the war except to donate to the Bank of Ukraine. But, there's going to be a rebuilding. And so I hope during this discussion today, we can maybe also just explore how we can do more business between Ukraine and America and see how we can help out. I thought that I would start with a capital markets overview, and then after that get into what Buckhill does. Because I think it's important to get a sense of where things are in the business cycle overall. So this, for anyone raising capital, this is a very, very tough market to raise capital. Buckhill does venture capital, but overall, from what we call Series A to debt and to private equity, it has changed dramatically since 2022. The one area which seems where there still is capital available is what's called seed capital, which is early stage companies at the dream state, and that is the one area. If one was going to start a company, and there are, I think, many young entrepreneurs in Ukraine, this is a place that's the one place that one can raise capital. But I'm just in the U.S. It's hard to raise capital, so it's if one's having problems here, it's problems everywhere. Misery has comfort. So. With that, I thought I would dive into Buckhill Capital. And so our mission is to invest in companies that make positive social or environmental benefits. And I think that's actually a very good strategy from an investment point of view, not just that for a saving the world kind of view. So we don't use some of the words like ESG or impact, but we use it as a filter, just like if you wanted to invest only in software companies. We think that there's a filter of we have three strategies. One is efficient use of resources, which is really how to improve supply chains. And so I'll just tell you about our three strategies. So efficient use of resources, we focus on how to improve supply chains. A case study is a company called Worldly that provides data for companies, consumer products companies, to measure their environmental and social footprint. And so it's a data business. I can tell you there is an unlimited demand for data. I'm surprised how much people want data. But so this company measures it started with apparel companies. So basically most companies over 10 billion in revenues are using this. This is a company that was started in 2019 and it's just raised its Series B capital. It's public, $55 million. And I guess I'd say this is an example, and it's been a strong investment for us, is an example of how to focus early on something that provides positive environmental benefits. And we started this in 2018, and now in 2023, it's a market that is well developed, and we, by going early, had a big opportunity there. The second focus we have is what we call human-centric platforms. And what we mean by is online platforms where people get more out of the platform than the platform gets out of them. I started a search engine in 1996 called Answers.com, which is one of the first advertising-supported search engines. With my co-founder was Bill Gross of Idealab. And what I've learned from that is that there's a few online companies that are owning a lot of data, huge amount, and I think it should be more distributed. So, as an example, we have a company called Para, which supports gig workers, people who drive Uber, and it helps them optimize. That company was actually started, we were the first investors in Para, was started with 6 employees, 3 who were Ukrainian engineers. It's now 19 employees, and there's 6 Ukrainian engineers. And the company, I just talked to the CEO, who's based in Austin, David Pickrell, and he was telling me that the original Ukrainian engineers were very strong and have moved from more of a product technical role to senior management role. So I'm proud that we have and continue to have these engineers working, and they are also some of them have been fighting the war too, very admirably, and at the same time working at night. So that is an example of a platform where the gig workers get more out of it. If it is successful, they are going to get much more value out of it than the company does. And there's not an advertising component to it. So the gig workers' data is not being monetized by anyone else but the gig workers. So the third strategy is what we call healthy communities. And healthy communities can have a range of things, but the newest company is a company called Mill. And Mill takes, it's a bin you put in your kitchen, and you put your food in that. It dries it, kind of like composting, but it makes it dry so that it can actually be used for feed, chicken feed. And so this is a way of taking food waste, instead of going to the landfill, it's actually going to a farmer who makes chicken. So it's a circular thing. And it may sound like a strange product, but the engineers, the founders, was also the first engineer for the Apple iPhone, the iPad. Matt Rogers is his name, and then Nest. So he's now got a fourth consumer product that he's developing. So those are, I guess, three examples of our strategy, and we feel that this way of focusing on the environment and social is actually risk mitigation. Mm-hmm. And so maybe sort of take that to a side. It's, for example, that we do not invest in alcohol, and I drink wine, and therefore I know that at some point I think that it could get regulated, or it's not. It's the kind of thing where I think the market go away from it. So that's an example, I think, of where I feel we have risk mitigation, because the liquor business is a great business to invest in. People come up with organic wines and all that, but we filter out because we think the long-term risk is higher, and so that's an example of risk mitigation. I don't know if you have a question.
Well, you mentioned several things which attracted my attention. First, you started that it is a tough time to raise capital for private equity. Preparing for this meeting, because I'm not an expert, I'm not particular, it's not my field of expertise. I tried to look through, there's some statistics, and learned a new term, which is called dry powder.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I understood that dry powder is a cash available in private equity, it's not invested yet.
Yes.
Correct? It's correct?
Yeah.
And it's a huge amount of money.
Yes.
Even more than private equity invests per year. So it's some months and months until the company can digest available money. I see certain contradiction with what you've said, tough time to raise money and a lot of cash available.
So that's because we protect our babies. And that dry powder, so for example, a Series A investment is to lead to a Series B. In 2022, a Series B would be in 18 months. Well, today, if there is no Series B, the baby runs out of cash. And so the funds keep the dry powder, because if no one else puts the money in, then the Series A investors will put money in the Series B. So, so that's one aspect, which is to do what's called dry powder for follow-on investing. The other, and on your comment about raising money, I was talking about raising new funds, and to raise either for fund managers to raise funds. It's a very hard time for successful fund managers, but it's also for companies that people like ourselves will focus more on our existing portfolio companies right now than in putting money into new companies. So that's the difference. Is if you have it already, then they're going to put more, because if we don't fund them, if we don't fund the Series B, the company runs out of cash, and so we lose our Series A.
Right, good, thank you.
And I guess I just sort of the follow on that is that in 2022, and before the last couple of years, it was all about investing money and starting lots of companies. Now, for fund managers, it's about focusing on your existing portfolio and working with them and helping them in getting through this crisis. I'll just say, so you and I I'm 62. People didn't listen that much to me before 2022. They didn't really need us. Now that things are tough, now people are listening a little bit more.
Well, it's some kind of dangerous remark, because people are still voting for people much older than us.
That's true. You're absolutely
That's
right.
strange then, what they're listening to and why they voted to. So they don't like financial expert above 60, but they like politicians above 80. Strange. But look, and another thing, but just to understand, it's always a matter of discussion. And Ukraine in particular, because we still have this, from one side, post-communist country, the social ideas and social type of thinking in Ukraine, and at the same time in business, liberal ideas prevail in Ukraine, very strong, stronger than in the USA, as far as I could gather from reading US literature and US sources. How could you comment? Because the private equity funds, private equity company, is a creature, is a baby of a liberal capitalism.
Yeah.
And you're trying to use in your strategy, let's say, certain additional, some kind of auxiliary ideas, which do not comply with the pure Milton Friedman's, make profit and that's it.
Yes.
How would you explain it? Why do you need this approach now or always, or whatever? I like it because, it's about a shared value and using the business tools in order to create a social wealth. And it is of paramount importance to prove that it's possible, it works. But it's first time I have a person who actually does it in practice. How would you explain why do you do this? You mentioned risk mitigation, but it's an argument. I understand it, but it's in my opinion not the strongest argument can be done.
Yeah, well, one of the first rules of investing is don't lose money. And the second one is don't lose money. But I would say,
remember this. These are two important rules. don't lose money, and you'll be happy.
Well, because then you live to fight another day.
Is there any third rule?
What?
Is there any third rule?
Well, I would say don't lose money, but you start with a downside protection, and when we do that, we actually say we're going to invest, and we feel comfortable no matter what, we're going to get the money, even though there is risk. We make mistakes, but when we start, we think we're going to get the money back. But I would say that it's an evolution of Milton Friedman, and it's actually it's a strategy like a technology strategy. That's the way we view it. Different people, again, we don't use the word ESG, and so I personally think that it is just a thoughtful strategy that is where the market is going, as I said, with data and the data that's in environmental and social. There's now a huge demand for it. And I'd actually say that our investments have actually done quite well. And just to be sort of simplistic about it, we also invest in SpaceX. We've actually made more higher returns in our investments, for example, in the environmental data. So we do not make what's called concessionary returns. Mm-hmm. We actually think we're going to do better. The standard measurement for private equity is a 20% internal rate of return and a 2x multiple of capital or more. And we think we can do better by this strategy. And not that it's so we think it's we're going on a positive wave.
Mm-hmm. So this is combination of simultaneously at the same time to create a social goods.
Yes. And
raise money in a better than the market. I mean, it reminded me this Warren Buffett bet 10 years ago, a bit more than 10 years ago, where the hedge fund can beat the market, and the hedge fund failed. and then said they don't want actually to beat the market. They just wanted something different. So what if then, I would make it, let's say, I will press you a little bit, sorry.
Please.
What if this kind of investment, this kind of approach does not assume raising more money than other companies, than other private equity funds? I mean, with this strategy concentrated on social, on generating the wealth, the health, as you said, the proper supply chain cleanness, let's say, of supply chain or whatever. What if it's not about money? Would you continue doing this?
Well, what got me to do this transition is my daughter told me that what I had been doing, and I focused on, oil and gas and different things. And she said, don't you want to do something good in your life? And so that's, and I put that filter on, and I'll just tell you that, in 2014, a lot of things I did, oil and gas, natural resources have gone up, but I again think that I actually got into something that has a stronger and better growth rate. So, I haven't had to face that yet, but I would say, and I don't really intend to do that, because I think in order to really make a positive change in this world, we have to have everyone believing it. And so whether, let's just say in America, whether you're Democrat or Republican, I want people to look at the returns and say, I don't care. We want to invest in this because it makes money. And so I have actually, I work with somebody who's very strong Republican. We are actually quite a Trumpian type Republican. We're very complementary. And for example, we go out and we meet with wind power companies. Often those companies are more Republican than I would expect. And so you can press me, but I guess no, you can, but it's a theoretical question at this point. But I just maybe following also a little bit on that, today companies are so much made of people. And in order to attract people, you want them to feel good about where they work. And I actually find that if they feel good about where they work, and if you treat them well, that they stay longer. It's a better deal. You may actually, sometimes you don't have to pay them as much, or they don't demand, but actually it's almost more important that they work really hard and they're very focused and very passionate about the business, rather than being there just for the money.
I personally like this argument much more than risk mitigation, because I also like to say that all businesses are people. Still,
yes.
It's not about artificial intelligence, which we just jump in. But you also very interesting, and you mentioned that this term which attract my attention, but human-centric LLM.
Yeah.
For me, it sounds simultaneously great and not fully understandable. What do you explained a little bit, like human-centric IT companies, data collections, but LLM, a language model, this is, the hype at the moment. Everybody speak with ChatGPT, stop talking to their daughters and kids, and etc. How should it look like? Sorry, again, it's but theoretical question, but you provoked.
Yeah, well, I actually appreciate the question, because then I get to brag about one of our portfolio companies. Anthropic is an LLM that is human-centric, and that's one of the main reasons why we invest in it. And it's more of what we call an experimental investment. Mm-hmm. So that is one where actually, high risk for us. But what I like, again, is I think that this is a good business strategy in that they're very focused on making the company and the way the applications are that are human-centric, positive, aligned with human beings. And that, I think, will increase the trust level in Anthropic and will give them a competitive advantage over time. They are actually very careful, and they will cut things if they're uncertain or if they feel they're human-centric. Now, it's early, and it remains to be seen, but they seem to be quite committed to it. One of the founders of the three founders is focused on it. So it's not just a sort of a side kind of idea. But I personally think that if AI is really supposed to become part of our lives, human trust in them, which there is, so low, and really, over time, we may have our own little AI, companion going with us and telling us that we are driving too fast or that we should exercise more. And if you don't trust it, then, and if it's not human centric, I think that people would rather buy the one that is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we put our bet on Anthropic. Thank you for that opportunity to advertise.
I know, it's very interesting because it's not a standard company investment. And you also mentioned that there's a big demand on this. But by demand, do you mean demand of companies' money to do these kind of things, or demand of investors to put money in such businesses?
And you mean the data businesses?
Yeah, I mean data businesses, all your portfolio, let's say.
Oh yeah, ours. I mean, well, we invest in systems change, and when you have big problems, then it's going to take big solutions. And so, the Anthropic is one of many competing in AI to handle these big. There's an insurmountable different uses for this data, and so we think we can support a younger company, and if they are successful, it will be a very big company with a huge impact. The sort of going back to it. So Worldly, the other data company, they address waste in the supply chain. They started by addressing waste in the apparel industry and the carbon footprint of the apparel industry. It's a huge, huge problem. It's a huge market. And if we can help solve that, if we can help reduce that, it'll be a big company. Mill, dealing with food waste, again, a huge contributor to methane gas. If we can take that and not only reduce the methane gas, but also put it into chicken feed, then we are really solving a huge problem. And the proof in it, for example, Mill was launched in February of this year. It is sold out. The company is working with municipalities because they think that municipalities, rather than having their own compost program, may look at Mill. Of course, not everywhere, and it's a U.S.-based company right now. But I think all of these things are addressing huge things with huge problems, and will have systems change.
It seems that we are popular in internet right now immediately. So I'll come to these questions, but let's then, if you have more and more questions appearing from the audience online, I'd like to switch about Ukraine. You mentioned Ukraine. You visited in 2006, as far as I remember, with intention to invest from agriculture. So how do you feel about this kind of investment today?
Well, why don't we? Maybe we could have a question to the audience.
We have a question.
No. Is there a way to vote?
No, it's not posted. It's just.
No, I know, but there's no way the audience can vote yes or no.
Yes or no? I'm not sure. I can't.
Maybe if there's anyone working here, I'd love to ask the audience: do you want foreign investment in Ukraine? Because I'm not sure. So if there is a way to vote, or feel free to put it in the chat or whatever. When I came in 2006, Yushchenko was president. It was a nice country to visit. So I've got one yes. If you want foreign investment in Ukraine, gotta make it so it's hospitable for and what we would say safe for foreign investors to come in. So the problem I had at that time was I was coming to buy farmland, and I hadn't asked the question that seriously because it didn't even cross my mind that we wouldn't be owning it. But when I got here, I was told there's no foreign ownership of land, and what you can do is you can lease it. And if the law ever changes, then you can buy it. Well, that's a non-starter. When I do real estate and agriculture, we own it. And and Poland next door does it. I don't mean to be obnoxious about it, but if you want foreign investment, and as I understand it, the law still has not changed for foreign ownership. It's that is not a risk that I want to
There
take.
always a hole. I'm not an expert in this particular law legislation, but as far as I know, the law prohibits foreigners to own land, but companies registered in Ukraine can own. Therefore, like owning stock in Chinese companies, it's also the internal law regulates that everything belongs to people, but nevertheless, it's a huge investment available in stock market in Shanghai, flourishing, whatever. So it's always a possibility if you don't speak just to officials. So your question, I laughed because it's immediately reminded me that you probably communicate too much with official possibilities rather than particular practical people on the field, which would help.
Well, so I'll just tell you, China is a great example where invested in China had there was restrictions on being able to sell the shares, and the company was highly valued. And just as it was going to the IPO, we lost it. So that was an example of how not to do it. And as I understand it today, you need to create a joint venture with a local partner. And it's a tricky thing to do a joint venture with a local partner in the U.S. with U.S. law and all that. To do it where the law prohibits your partner can own it and buy, and we as a foreign investor can't. That creates a great disequilibrium in the relationship. And so I guess I'd say in terms of investing in companies, I can spend more time, but I haven't just been talking to officials. I've talked to business people. It seems still to be a risk, but I need to learn more about it. I think the opportunity is really to hire Ukrainian employees, Ukrainian engineers, and I think there's a wonderful opportunity also of starting companies in Ukraine and then moving them to the U.S., and that's already happening now. With companies in the Silicon Valley, so it's that's why I would rather
leave somebody here to live here. Otherwise you will take everybody. No,
well, I'm saying we've got Para has 6 Ukrainian employees out of 19, and
but they're here or
here.
Okay, great.
Here, yeah.
Why? By the way, why Ukrainian engineers are good?
So. Compared to,
I'm always puzzled. So I know said some answers, but I would love to learn from those who actually contract them. Why? What's the difference between Ukrainians and, let's say, I don't know, Czech or Polish?
I have more experience with Ukrainian, strangely enough, and I'd like to expand that more. See if there's something we can do, because I think that just in my community and with our portfolio companies. One thing we can do, and I view this as a volunteer job, is to try to figure out how to hire more Ukrainians in Ukraine. But so what I've understood, speaking to the CEO of Para, for example, is that they knew the Ukrainians would have great technical expertise. That was great, but they were also consistent and reliable employees who are in the U.S. People jump, not as loyal. So that was a second thing. And then actually showed great managerial skills, and then also had more experience. And then, of course, the other thing is financially at a lower cost than an engineer in the U.S. And when you figure in not only a higher salary, but then also the turnover and churn of a U.S. employee, that's a huge cost. So a stable, smart, shows up, on time, not high maintenance, and has managerial potential is what I hear, and what I think could be expanded, and that's the way, I'm hoping to help plan and be part of the post-war development, which I'm hoping.
I agree with you. By the way, everybody when speaking of Ukraine, you first, by the way, who called engineers, from those whom I recently spoke, who called engineers rather than IT specialists, programmers, etc., which is good because it's widen the range of people who can be exploited.
Yes.
Probably not everybody knows, I don't know whether you know, that Boeing, for example, contract in Ukraine, keeps in Ukraine hundreds of engineers working for Boeing.
Yes.
And Samsung opened the first R&D center in Ukraine. It's an agricultural company, by the way. Syngenta and others also keep people working on research and development, which is still an opportunity in other spheres. You know, we have chemistry, used to have a big industry in chemistry. There are engineers in chemistry. We have electrical engineers still available somehow. And these people, at the moment, especially men, are restricted to travel, and therefore they are available. There is a big barrier, language.
Yep.
But, you know, this is not something you cannot overcome.
No.
I believe that's an opportunity, and if you would look, I'm sure that you will find some chances. We have questions from.
I'll just one thing on that. Maybe I was on this idea of doing business. Mm-hmm. I searched on the internet, business in Ukraine, and what came back is things you should know about Ukraine and challenges with working in Ukraine. So so then I went and I searched business in Poland just to do a comparison. And in Poland, it was the same consulting firm saying the 10 problems and the issues. But so there wasn't. So then I searched business in Portugal. Portugal, how you can incorporate, how you can expand. And I'd say that I think it would be great to see some kind of a promotional thing, do business in Ukraine. And I know it's tough right now, but you know, with the risks that people would perceive, but you know, the idea of all the IT power, what you're saying with Boeing, you know, come to Ukraine. In the United States, if you say business in Georgia or you say business in Texas, they're competing with each other. And since in Poland, sorry for the Polish people on this, but if they don't have it now, this is an opportunity for Ukraine to make it.
It's not difficult, but it's a shame, of course. Not the shame of business school. It's not our business, but a shame for those state agencies. A lot of them exist.
So I'll push you.
Which fail.
I'll push you because I just talked to your.
I accept it.
No, but I talked to you and you said you want to be of service. Why doesn't the business school say do business in Ukraine?
I've talked because we have two big associations with international business, American Chamber of Commerce and European Business Association. They did some work in this respect, and they all obviously can push further officials to create this. I'll say not only to love Ukraine and these two colors, but to make a practical tool to investment.
Yes,
I agree. Questions, because we need to address the questions which audience is interested in. Risk mitigation and the war. What you expect? Could you say somehow digest and could you invest in the company with in Ukraine, which is currently under the risk of the war? What additional, let's say, like what return on investment? The question was you expected from the business in the country which lead war. But I would widen a little bit these questions. It was not concentrating on return on investment.
Yes.
What actual conditions to invest in Ukraine for the company, for private equity company, for Buckhill?
Yeah, for Buckhill. Yeah. I would obviously say today there are, I'd say, you know, starting with just rule of law, and that is a condition that we need. I mean, it's already complicated to invest in another country because then you need to understand their legal system, and this is where I say why invest in Ukraine. That in my it would be a lot of work to just get up the simple rule of law. on that. And then after that, you have to get conditioned. If a Ukraine company was registered in the United States and was as a U.S. corporation, yes, then that would be quite interesting and attractive. And that's really gets into technology transfer. Or, for example, start the company in Ukraine and then create a U.S. company.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I personally can't understand why creating a company in Netherlands or in Ireland or in Delaware or in Cyprus would help solving the legal problems in Ukraine. But I've got the point, which is not very optimistic, because the rule of law and the problem with the rule of law in Ukraine, I've been hearing for dozens of years already. And therefore, I become an old, gray hair, and don't expect that the situation will change very quickly.
I'll just make the comparison. So I'm half Danish. Denmark and Norway, both places to do investments, but Denmark had a better rule of law than Norway, and that meant for a while there was a challenge investing in Norway. And I'd say, just from our side as an investor, we use the same documents and we know them, and the same lawyers. So we just do the same thing over and over. I come here, I've got to learn, maybe even on top of that, a different language. But if it's not even a similar system. And so, for example, right now, Norway and Denmark are more simple because Norway changed their laws.
There's a question whether the person, Alexander, can contact you because they won't currently plan an expansion into the US. I can recommend them visiting Buckhill Capital site, and obviously there is a contact information over there. And Mr. Jones is a principal. How it's called?
Yeah. So Ash Shrivastava works with me, and so I would go right to Ash along with me, and also info at Buckhill Capital, and we look and review all deals. So
Alexander,
all deals that are appropriate with it. And so for us to invest, we're looking for a company that is doing system change in those three buckets. We said healthy communities, human-centric platforms, and efficient use of resources. We also need the companies to have a proven commercial product with revenues, say $1 million plus.
It seems that they work in solutions in logistics, retail, and HoReCa.
Yeah.
Probably also some kind of software solutions.
Love that.
So, Alexander, visit buckhillcapital.com and find all the necessary information. Then we have, I've already started to ask already this question, but further on, if not mentioning rule of law and all these legal systems behind, what else going further? Let's assume everything is okay.
Let's assume. I'd love that.
Let's assume. What else?
You take care of the law, we'll take care of the business.
What else? What kind of a strategy and kind of approaches the company should demonstrate in order to attract your attention for investment?
Addressing a big problem. Having a solution where there's traction in the market. So, the example of the apparel industry, we looked at Worldly. They wanted to solve waste in the apparel industry, the carbon footprint. We saw they had a product. So large market, product that is an advancement, a dramatic advancement. And then the management, we need that to be comfortable that the management can perform. And that usually means having expertise in what they've done. And then also that they've handled outside money before. Because it's important to understand with outside money, it means that there are controls and actually also the responsibility of returning it. Not everybody who invests in has returned money, but we understand what they did in terms of being fiduciaries.
You obviously don't make me optimistic.
Why? No, there's lots of people who do that.
Of course, there are lots of people, but we have it's outside money. We have a lot of Ukrainian entrepreneurs which are proud of not attracting outside money. just building business on their own money, on their own capital, etc. Which in our business school, as a professor in business school, and my colleagues need somehow to change their mind that it's probably not the very best way in a certain situation to rely only on your own money. And you have just said that in order to grow and to get money, you should try at least once to get them. So
well, here, look. If you can grow without raising money, I think that's the best way. You don't have to give up anything. You have a much bigger business.
Good.
You're right. You have much more control over it. I think it probably is more fun and, it might be challenging, but I think absolutely in today's world with starting a company, the more that you can do it with sweat equity and the less you have to give up of ownership, because you give up ownership. So this money is expensive for the entrepreneur.
About technologies, I mean, you mentioned certain technologies you're interested in, but do you have any demand with respect to technologies the company itself developing or using in their business? And I know the question was, what innovative approaches and technology can help enterprises attract investment and create competitive advantages in today's market?
So we don't invest based on technology. We based on business plans and addressable markets and solutions. And often technology people come and say that generally anybody I meet with says their technology is the best. And it may be very good, but there's often someone else there. And actually, as the technology gets developed and to solve a problem, things change. And so you actually have to change it. So we actually invest in a business goal, in solving a big business problem, whatever it takes. Yes, we want top competent. Matt Rogers at Mill is one of the best technology software engineers and business leaders that I know of. But at the same time, just investing in a technology could be outdated. But that's our approach. Other people want to be investing in the best technology.
I see there are some more questions, but I can't read it from here. So I kindly ask my colleagues to bring me a print or somehow else.
So are there any Russian businesses you've invested in? So when I came in 2006, I went to Russia and to Poland and a number of countries. I actually found Russia to be quite interesting, but then I was really worried about the political risk. So no, have not invested in any Russian companies. And that was in 2006. And subsequently, what has happened has confirmed that. So that's the answer on the Russian question.
You in your site, there was this, you're managing the fund of $5 billion investment in different, you have $5 billion.
So the group, and that's a track record over his, not Buckhill. No. So Buckhill's, but as I was at JP Morgan, I was at a firm called
how many companies actually are involved in this $5 billion? What is the, let's say, more or less typical volume of investment? I understand it's a little bit strange question.
Yeah, it is. Well, but part of it is that I've done
examples. Example for the companies you've mentioned.
Okay, so I would say, early on I was making big investments and also doing private placements and debt. So those are much bigger tickets in the 100 million plus. But why not just take it to the current business, Buckhill? So we're investing in Series A capital primarily, and Series A capital is in the $5 to $15 million. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we will invest generally part ourselves, and we will bring in other investors in a syndicate where they come. Because I think when you bring outside capital, it's good to have several investors who have different strengths too. And again, sort of on the risk, for example, on World, I brought in Titan Grove, and where I felt that Jeff Tannenbaum really is an extraordinary investor who would help the company grow and really bring professional management on that. So, the range is in these rounds, as I said, 5 to 15 for Series A, 15 to 75 or 100 million for Series B. But part of our thing is we write checks, not huge checks, but we also then work with companies on their business development, which includes getting clients and also in getting more capital. And the benefit of that, really, I guess, adding a little bit off, is then companies recommend us, and so we are brought in with other companies. And we end up becoming a repeat investors with companies.
What's the exit strategy of Buckhill?
So first of all, we like to be long-term investors. It's hard to find a good company. And so one of the exit strategies is a partial return of capital. And in the past, we've done a lot of real estate where it's called a recap, where you borrow money and take the money out. But the exit strategy is going public. Answers.com, which is a search engine that went public. Then it could be a trade sale to a company. But really, if there's a way for us to own part of it and get our money back, return our capital plus a return, that's a wonderful way to do it. Because they're really, kind of with the Warren Buffett statement, you run across only so many great companies over the course of your life, and when you do, stick with it.
What you would prefer, say technically speaking, in Ukraine, to invest in equity or provide credits?
Equity. I started as a banker, and I found that as a bank, we took way too much risk, and that the equity people were generating more capital, and we as lenders were taking the same risk. So therefore, I think equity is the way we'd proceed.
Which means that still for agricultural company, it's still problematic to consider currently.
I'm hopeful.
Well, we are all hopeful.
I think, it's and it was kind of with what you were saying, that with the agriculture, you said companies are doing their research in Ukraine. They should. Ukraine, is a world leader in agriculture, and but don't just do the research. Try to figure out how to grow it. And it's, I say this with some, reservation. With these are really uncertain times.
We have still some 6 minutes available. Would you mind if I could ask a few some kind of personal questions, about yourself as an individual? You invested, let's start not with you, but with Elon Musk, because he's a famous, in Ukraine in particular, controversial, in all sense, controversial. You invested in SpaceX, right?
Yes.
How would you, this company, which is grow and started to influence the whole world, whatever, sometimes not obviously, let's say this influence is not clearly obvious, especially with this recent events around TikTok, not TikTok, but X. Now it's X. How do you feel personally, being an investor, being involved in such a business? Do you feel personally responsible, some kind of a responsibility of what's going on in the company you invested in? Elon Musk is just an example to start the question. You have other companies probably to choose. So how you live with your investment?
Yeah, that's a psychiatry in some way question, but I'd say you want to feel good about the company, and you want to feel good about what it produces. You want to feel good about how the employees are treated, and what its impact is on the world. And I think SpaceX is actually a great example where we are a small investor and have a hard time influencing the company, But maybe getting to the strategy, when we started doing the research on it in 2017, it was very clear that it would be an attractive business just to invest in the satellite business, and that would give us a strong economic return. The hope was to be able to provide that Starlink would be a success. Now, what Starlink has done to try to create communications and connectivity for large parts of the world that don't have it has been the holy grail since I actually started financing cellular phone companies in 1985. Many people had failed. So when we analyzed it, we said the base case is the satellite business is going to make us a good return. The huge opportunity is to create conductivity for the 2 billion people in the world who don't have it. And it's really Africa. I mean, it would really be a life changer. And so when the Ukraine war broke out, Starlink, I was so proud of Starlink and pleased in that, and still am, that Starlink provides this conductivity. When it was interrupted in Crimea and stopped, I did what I could in reaching out, but that was really upsetting as an investor, and so I did what I could, but I don't have a huge influence, and I'd say on that one. It really was a terrible business decision, because when you provide, internet connectivity, one of the most important things in a service telecommunication is reliability. You never want to have interruptions. People remember the interruptions for years. So it really was, I would say, done for other reasons, except there may have been someone who contacted SpaceX, Elon, with a supplier that might have put pressure on, which I don't know of. But really, I'd say that that decision was made on a personal basis, and I'd say I think probably overall SpaceX has been a great thing for Ukraine. But there is
I'm sorry, don't feel it personally. I just mentioned Elon Musk. It is a fact, as far as I could get, Starlink helped a lot in the Ukraine war.
Yep.
And therefore we should appreciate Elon Musk and Mr. Jones for investing in such a project. And I would like to finish with another question. And sorry, Konstantin, we will not go deeper into politics next time.
Okay.
You mentioned your daughter. Do you believe, and please say yes, that this new generation that is coming and going to studying the businesses, studying to manage, and I have not directly, but granddaughter working in the US as well. Will they change the approach? Will they be able to resolve all these, complicated problems related currently with the whole world development, which pushing it towards not a very pleasant position to the edge of survival? So.
There are a lot of fathers, they're already having influence. There are a lot of fathers who have daughters like Greta Thunberg, and that's my daughter. And they are already influencing us. When they tell you, when you're in your 50s, you think you've had a great career, and they tell you, you need to do better. I think the next generation are already having a positive impact. And I think that they are living in a different way. They are, far more advanced. Buy less in some ways. I mean, some of them do, and and they see a warmer world coming, and so they, not everyone, but I think it's a profound, and I have great hope in that. there are so many people working on things that we have a real challenge with global warming, but there are so many different ways that people are working on this that perhaps that those things, when they all bubble up and come together, really will make a change. And that's what I hope for our next generation.
Great.
And for all of you out there with your businesses.
Great. Some kind of outcomes or let's say, in essence, what we've told, take care about money, invest in something you would be proud, and correct me if I got something differently, and create the value. And we are Ukrainian have a homework to improve our legal systems, to be more demanding towards our politicians, to create even the simple tools how to invest. And we are like a business school. We'll try to teach businessmen in Ukraine to be ready, because money will come. So you need to have a big ideas and some capacity to realize them. So that's a great to know that we are not alone and the money are available. We just need to be receptive enough. With this, I would like to end our discussion, to appreciate and to thank you very much, Mr. Jones, for visiting us, visiting Ukraine in such a not a very simple time, also with this, as far as safety is concerned, for visiting our business school. We would be always great to see you again, especially even if not you directly, but with the students who will come to us and say, we've got funds from Buckhill Buckhill Capital, and therefore we want to learn more about strategy and finance in order to let's say more or less comply with demands of the investors. For those who, I appreciate everybody who joined us and for activity with the questions, and like to remind that MIM Business School is available in different platforms on internet. And we soon have a very important event called Facing the Future Forum on the 6th of October. Is some kind of a not a final point, but important milestone in our Reinforce EA project. And for this purpose, for everybody who is interested, I invite to visit our website. Once again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Jones, and we will work on our homework.
No, thank you. And I'm very excited for the people of Ukraine, for your business opportunities in the future.